I am Kwame Thomas, and tonight we'll be joined again by the man himself, Germaine Barrett, political and social commentator. We'll be speaking about the launch of the National Debating Week and the role of debate in shaping future leaders, and no one better to speak about this. So this is a conversation you won't want to miss. Stay tuned. Welcome to the conversation. Germaine, how are you?
Kwame, I am doing well. I'm excited at the imminent arrival of National Debaters Week.
National Debaters Week. The first question that I want to ask, though, is what inspired the National Debating Week and what makes this year's launch in particular significant?
Well, you know, Kwame, I am the messiah for debating in Jamaica, quite frankly. The organization that I lead is devoted entirely to utilizing debating as a tool for achieving things like conflict resolution, communication skills development, creativity, collaboration, all of these very key skills that are 21st century cutting edge skills that enhance your propensity towards success. And so because of that, you would understand that naturally we would have wanted to have Jamaica at least for 1 week. I mean, we'd love if the whole year were dedicated to debating, but at least for 1 week, we want for Jamaicans to focus on debating, to really dig deep into it and to understand the awesome power of this craft, to really mold minds and shape futures. And so we wrote to the Governor General early last year, and we said, we made our case to him. And he responded to say, yes, we made a convincing case, and that he will establish or produce a proclamation declaring the second week of October every year as being National Debaters Week. Of course, the Ministry of Education is also on board, the government of Jamaica. We have several universities, civil society organizations, and I think yourselves there are also supporters of National Debaters Week.
Yes, so one of the things that I want to find out now is, in terms of debating, we have oftentimes heard, I know I have heard it before, that we can use debating as a tool for youth empowerment. So my question is, how do you do that from your organization, and what impact has this had on the participants?
Yes. That question sounds like a question that when we're talking about debating and when we're providing adjudication of debating, we say, how do you mechanize it? Meaning, talk to me about how it works, yes? So you're asking the question basically, how do we achieve the outcomes that are promised from debating? And it's really because as a debater, you have to first of all practice the discipline of listening, of understanding, of responding appropriately, yes? And also of having enough information to put forward a robust set of arguments. You see that, Kwame, it takes a lot of training, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of discipline. And quite frankly, the more we train our young people to become adept at those particular things, to chisel their minds into fine-tuned machineries for conversations, for arguments, to have information, to know how to package your arguments in a way that makes it persuasive, then you'll find that a lot of the kinds of challenges that we have in the society are suddenly dispensed with. Yes? It's pretty that simple. Yes.
So what I'm hearing though is pretty much from the perspective of active listening. That's what primarily stuck out to me, especially in light of what you said last, where conflict resolution and all of that. So my other question now is, how do you think that aids us in being articulate? Because you find that if we can't actively listen to what you're saying, then the possibility exists that we're just literally waiting to speak. So we can't base an argument that's proper, and we can't respond to your queries or your comments or your concerns properly. How do you help with that?
Absolutely. So active listening is at the foundation of debating rather, and good debaters know how to listen and listen well. So when you're listening actively, you're listening to understand, first of all. You don't just hold an idea in your head and just waiting for your turn to throw those ideas in the world and have the other person confronted with it. You listen. You also listen. You understand. You also have to analyze, ensuring that you understand, and then you formulate an appropriate response.
Yeah.
You see, that kind of process, it is the kind of process that leads ultimately to empathy. Because you see, Kwame, if you say something to me and I have not taken the time to really appreciate, understand what you said, I am just waiting to throw my argument at you, or throw my quarrel at you. If that is the process, then necessarily I'm not going through the path of developing the kind of appreciation of what your worldview is, what informs your thought, and how it is that I must engage with that thought in a way that is appropriate and direct. Yes? So a lot of times what happens, for example, there's a lot of frustration in conversations. Yes? Somebody says something to you, you don't really wait to appreciate and understand what they've said, and you're just throwing words back at them, and then they're throwing words at you sometimes in frustration because they're getting the sense that you're not understanding them, and it just builds tension and it builds conflict. So we say debating is a tool that teaches active listening, which also aids ultimately in reasoned discourse, in peaceful dialogue and conversation. And boy, I tell you, I'm yet to see or hear the Jamaican who wouldn't agree that this is needed most urgently within our society.
Yeah, reasoned discourse. I love that. But what are some of the activities that you have planned for this particular week, and how do you envision it reaching the different parts of the Jamaican public?
Okay, good. So, Kwame, is it today, October 11th, before the start of the National Debaters Week, we have a precursor. We have what is called, and it's just now wrapping up, it's called the Paul Bogle and the Warriors Debate Competition. It might not be the time when your listeners are viewing this, because I know this is delayed, but, we would have had the Paul Bogle and the Warriors Debate Competition in St. Thomas, where schools in St. Thomas, Portland, and St. Andrew would have culminated towards that grand final to look at issues relating to the historic struggle of peoples of African descent like ourselves, and how it is that there are intersectionalities between that struggle and the struggle that we are faced with now in modern day contemporary society. So we've had our young people really, really digging deep into that. But then on Sunday, which is the start of National Debaters Week, October 30th, we have a national church service at the Ocho Rios Methodist Church. So I want to say to Jamaicans far and wide, come on out, yes, and gain a spiritual understanding of debating and a powerful tool of debating to transform your life spiritually. So that's a national church service, October 30th. Then we have 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's the 14th, 15th, 16th of October. We have what I call the Zone A, B, and C debate invitationals. Now, what that is designed to do is to get young people from various schools in their respective areas of the island to come to a central location, be it Wilmers Boys School for Zone A, or Herbert Morrison Technical High School for Zone B, or Knox College for Zone C, to engage in a day of training, capacity building, learning, and of course debating. Yes? So that's what we're going to be doing for the first 3 days, the 14th, 15th, and 16th of October. Then Kwame, the week not done yet. So we continue with another activity at Church Teachers College called the JADE Debate Leadership Summit. Now, this one now, we bring debaters from all across the island. We bring debate leaders. We bring the teachers who support and lead debating in their respective schools. And we give them some robust capacity, improvements in their capacity through workshops, seminars, and so forth, again, to deepen the understanding of debating, widen the appreciation of different methodologies for enhancing competence in debating, and of course, overall building educational outcomes using debate.
Awesome.
So that's, again, Wednesday. That's Thursday.
That's Thursday.
2 more days to go. Not done yet.
So,
yes.
So, go on.
On the penultimate day, that's the 18th,
yes,
we have a day of service where debaters from all across the island converge on locations of the mustard seed communities to really interact and develop real empathy and understanding for those less fortunate children who live in homes. And then finally, for me, we get to the exciting bit. I think by that time we're thoroughly exhausted. But we then get to a point where we do what is called the JADE Pepper Pot and Pageant. We bring debaters from across the island to Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts at Saturday, October 19th, for a festival of arts, song, dance, poetry, all sorts of creativities, and also a pageant that crowns Mr. and Miss Jade for 2024.
Oh, that sounds like a whole list of things.
Quite a lot for me.
So from what we started out saying, we understand how there are some correlations between debating and critical thinking, but in terms of civic engagement though, especially among the Jamaican youth, how can debating be used as a tool to foster that kind of engagement?
You know, debaters necessarily debate all sorts of issues. And one of the issues that debaters are oftentimes faced with are issues of national importance, issues that once you really devote your mind to considering them, you can't help but develop a sort of interest in the development of your country. Yes? So all debaters, bar none rather, are invariably people who have an interest in the state of the nation, right? They don't just sit down and complain, say, Lord, Jesus, my road want to fix, my water supply turn off, or you know, all these kinds of things that, you know, we as Jamaicans complain about. But they're also committed to being a part of the solution. Because what you do as a debater, you're always faced with the challenge of engineering solutions to solve problems that exist within your community and within your nation at large. So invariably, by that continual exchange of ideas and that continual development of mechanisms for solving problems within your society, you become inherently interested in your country. And that, I contend, is what civics is all about. National pride and an interest in your community and your society at large.
All right, good. So we have been having such an insightful discussion so far. Much more to come on the other side of the break. You're watching The Conversation. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Conversation. We're speaking with Mr. Germaine Barrett. He is the founder and the executive director of Jamaica Association for Debating and Empowerment. Germaine, we were saying a lot of things just before we went to the break, but what I want to find out though is, can you tell us how debating skills can translate to lifelong leadership and leadership qualities among the participants?
I'm going to go back for me to the 5 C's of debating. Yes? Remember them, listeners, viewers. Communication, critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, and conflict resolution. Let's talk about them each quickly. Communication. As a leader, you have to communicate because leaders are first and foremost inspirational communicators. They are people who give guidance as to how it is that things ought to be done. And so if you can't communicate clearly and effectively, also efficiently, then you're challenged as a leader. So debating enhances that skill. Critical thinking. Fundamentally, what you're doing as a leader, you're constantly deriving solutions for problems, be it among your team or some other sphere. That's what you're doing. So critical thinking is necessarily at the cornerstone of leadership. You have creativity. Again, similar to critical thinking, creativity. You have to find solutions always for challenges that confront you and your team and those who follow you as a leader. You can't be the kind of person who just say, things are collapsing, so I just saw it go. No, right? People lose confidence in you, lose faith in you, and you'll find yourselves, replaced as a leader. So that kind of creativity is what we're also honing through the skill of debating.
Do you think that is there a lack though of that in just John public? When you look at our leaders, for example, do you see where some of those C's are coming, where there's a lack in one of the C's and there's an overcompensation in another one, and so we are left in a quandary? You see that happening while you tell us about the other C's that you haven't mentioned yet?
Right. Well, definitely. I think we could definitely do more with all of those C's. But I want to say certainly creativity and conflict resolution. I think that we definitely need to put a premium on enhancing. So what does that look like? It looks like the fact that there's so many challenges in our society, and I won't even pause to name them. You can think, listeners, viewers, as to what they are. But all of these challenges has persisted in Jamaica for as long as Jamaica has been a nation state. Many of those problems are fairly easy to resolve, I know many of them are challenging and deep and intractable, but they remain problems in 2024 because we have not demonstrated the creativity as a people, be it at the political level, at the business level, at the civil society, media. We have not done enough drilling down into creative solutions to arrest and to eradicate those challenges. So yeah, creativity is necessarily a key component of what we need to enhance in Jamaica. And then conflict. Can I tell you, Jamaica ranks very, very high in terms of a ranking of countries plagued with homicide, plagued with violence, plagued with crime, a tendency towards fighting and not talking things out. Yes, and so that, I think, again, you get a lot more because as a debater you have to listen, you have to understand, you have to respond respectfully. Yes, and that exchange of ideas leads ultimately to the kind of empathy and appreciation for the intrinsic worth of the human person. Again,
but Germaine,
we need that tremendously.
But Germaine, there seems to be some kind of contradiction there because we're very good at articulating policies. We're very good at that. We craft good policies. We articulate good policies. Mind you, we might be poor at implementing said policies. But when you say that we don't seem to lack creativity, conflict resolution is where the issues lie. How do we reconcile the two then? Because we have some of the best policies globally, but in terms of implementing said policies, I'm not so sure how does that feature in terms of our leadership capabilities, and how can debating help to put those things into perspective?
That's a brilliant question that on the surface of it seems to be a conflict, but I contend it isn't really. We're excellent at deriving macroscopic solutions, meaning the big picture solutions. So when you get down to the granular level, that's where we fail. Take crime, for example. We do well at imposing states of emergency, yes, and zozos, yes?
Yeah.
That is a part of the creative approach. But I'm saying we need to be more creative because the problem is nuanced. The problem is multifaceted and multivariate. So when we use, for example, a broad brush like state of emergency and think we're suppressing crime, we see the results. Move state of emergency, crime flares up, and we're back at it again. Yes? So what do we do? Creativity that leads to solvency is that which ultimately eradicates the problem. And I think that the policies of government, by and large, aren't leading to the kind of resolution of the problems clearly, right? And therefore, we need more creative, nuanced interventions to lead to the solutions that are necessary.
So based on what you have said, then, could we also argue that our leaders might not be communicating effectively or efficiently, because communication goes both ways. It has to do with critical thinking and active listening, as you have stated earlier. So it might be a case whereby they're not listening attentively enough so that they can actually tap into their own creative energies to solve some of these problems.
Well, that is true. So one of the things that characterizes a society like Jamaica, look at how conversations are had in Parliament versus how conversations are had on the political stage. What does that look like? Let me give you a great example. In the Parliament, we oftentimes focus on it. Makes the news when the politicians go out bad, yes, and defame the sacred Parliament of Jamaica. But more often than that, the conversations in Parliament is appropriate. It's critical. It's nuanced. It's detailed. But the language does not translate to that which conveys meaning to the average Jamaican. When the politician now talking to the people on the political platform, you hear the real Jamaican connection coming out. So it's like they're bipolar in a weird kind of way. Them can talk the Queen's English and them can talk the policy and the complexities of legislation, but on the other hand, that does not translate to the people. So, give you a quick example. We're going through a process of constitutional reform right now. one of the big issues with the Constitution of Jamaica is that people like you and I, who are a part of intelligentsia, Kwame, we understand it. We get it, right? The average Jamaican don't understand it, and that is why there is a massive disconnect between legislation and government policy and the Jamaican people really appreciating what that is about. That is a problem of communication, right?
Well, so the argument that we can push forward though is that they have not been doing a fair enough job at spreading awareness. But when we say communication, is it that we're just talking about how we sound in terms of the language that we use to communicate, or is it that we're talking about how much of the information we make available to John public?
It's a bit of both. It's about how you communicate, recognizing who your audience is, and the levels of linguistic capacities and understanding that exist by and large within the Jamaican population. Listen, I don't mean to defame anybody or denigrate anybody, but I speak truth. It might be politically incorrect. The truth is that the average Jamaican lacks a sophisticated appreciation of language. Yes, that's the truth. Sophisticated in the terms of the language we've inherited from the British, the English, yes?
But you're pressing me now, Germaine, because I'm prone to think, or to ask rather, do you then believe that we should be using our local vernacular? In other words, if you talk patois as opposed to the Queen's Standard English, or should we do it in such a way that it facilitates more code switching?
Right. I think a bit of both. I think a bit of both, because I would want to hear my parliamentary sittings be such that it's communicated in a way, it's articulated rather in a way that the average Jamaican tune in and understand at a guttural level. It's even people in educated spaces who speak English, many of them, when it is that there's an emotionally charged issue that comes from the heart, from the belly button, what's the language that them dig into? The vernacular, patois, right? So how then do you not, if you want to make connection, if you want to resonate with people, that's the language you should, that's a vehicle of meaning and communication that you ought to be using.
So I want you to ruminate on something now, because we're going to our second break. But what I want you to tell me now, or tell me on the other side of the break rather, is do you think that there's some level of hypocrisy in that there's this inherent fear or seeming fear to use and to regularize or standardize the use of Jamaican in classrooms, but yet still this is what we're hearing. In order to be able to effectively solve some of our problems and to communicate properly, we need to use that. That's what you're just saying. So tell me about that when we get back. Just to remind you that you're watching the conversation where we're speaking with Mr. Germaine Barrett. Continue to stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the conversation. We're speaking with Mr. Germaine Barrett, social and political commentator, on the role of debating in shaping future leaders, among other things. So just on the other side of the break, Germaine, you're about to tell us about whether or not there's some level of hypocrisy in society as far as we deal with the Jamaican language.
Yes. So I just want to put a little caveat to my response. I lead an organization that promotes debating. And so my views does not reflect the views of the organization I lead. Because I don't want to set a motion. I don't want to set a motion call me about whether patois or the dialect should be a national language. People think that there's a disadvantage when faced with me as a judge. No, but it's beyond
that now, you know. It's beyond that now, because what we have been hearing is that Jamaican is now a legitimate language. It's no longer considered to be patois or Creole. It's now a legitimate language. So you can link with persons, for example, Dr. Farquharson, up by the Jamaica Language Unit, and many others, Professor Devonish and so on. So that's something to consider.
Absolutely. So here's my take. We haven't gone far enough. we have gone part of. Let me tell you what I contain. And there's a lot of literature that supports this view, that when a child is born in their household, the language that they're first acquainted with in a casual, intimate setting is usually patois. And so when you go into the classroom now, that child brings that particular linguistic capacity with them. And then in the classroom, they're told that, boy, you chat bad. Or in the society, they're made to feel as though they have to curate this capacity to speak English and over time suppress the dialect. Yes? I think that I want to see a Jamaica where the kinds of prejudices against patois are totally eradicated. I want to see a Jamaica where in the classroom we really understand, so listen, part of what is leading to the poor educational outcomes, is the fact that the people them chat patois and you come to them and talk to them in English, which is not their native tongue, and again you're seeing the results. Yes? So I think that we should treat English as a second language in many instances and use patois as the language of instruction in our classroom context.
But that yes? might necessitate a whole upheaval of our education system. So what we might want to think of then, instead of saying my views are a little different, it would be why not have both? So we don't have a first or a second language per se. It's just that we use them hand in hand or use them side by side. Wouldn't that be a better approach?
Right. So first of all, officially Jamaica ought to be recognized and ought to establish itself as being a bilingual country, English and patois. Mm-hmm. At the instructional level, we have to appreciate that our children are first and foremost acquainted with patois. It is their mother tongue, it is a native dialect, and therefore anything else is secondary. What does that mean, and how does that impact education? You use the mother tongue as a tool for instruction. Let me give you a quick example. Kwame, you did Spanish in school?
Yes, and French.
You did Spanish in school?
Yes.
Did they start to teach you Spanish and French using Spanish and French?
Well, my French teacher was a native French speaker, so that was how we had to communicate with her first. But long and short, no, not really.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there had to be some utilization of that which you know to bring you to that which you don't know. Yes? And so again, I think that clearly this issue needs more forensic examination, to come to what exactly. But with the information that I have, in my opinion, that's what I tend towards. And that's why, for example, I'm moving towards establishing patois debates across Jamaica, because one of the challenges is that when you think about debating, you think about the formal English, the Queen's Register, and it is not a comfortable space for many Jamaicans to exist in. And so we need to use the tools that exist within the Jamaican space, within the Jamaican ecosystem, and use it to kind of fashion a form of debate that is more accessible to more Jamaicans.
So we're looking forward to the patois debates, definitely. Now, yes. and considering that you have said that, though, two things. How can schools and communities across the country get involved in National Debating Week, one, and your activities that you're doing? That's one of the things that we would definitely want to find out. I'll continue after you've responded to this.
Yes, so again, first of all, time is running out. National Debaters Week starts on Sunday. But we're going to extend the registration all the way up to the finishing line, to the start, rather, of National Debaters Week. How do you get registered? How do you get on board? You can get on board, first of all, as a school, as an individual, as an organization. Go on the JADE website. Let me give it to you now. Take out your pens, take out your devices, and take a note of it. myjade.org. That's myjade.org. Go to the website and you will look for a big yellow bell. Click that yellow bell and you'll see a list of things that you can register for. First one that you should be focusing on is National Debaters Week activities. Click on that and fill out the registration. Click submit and that is it. Okay, so again, myjade.org, click the yellow bell and ultimately click the registration that you want to be a part of. Okay, so that's that.
All right. So now that you have given the plug, what can be done though to better integrate debating into the national curriculum, and what role should the Ministry of Education? I know that you have a collaboration with them, but what role do you see them taking on to ensure that this becomes something that is right throughout the length and breadth of the country?
You know, Kwame, I must talk about an initiative that is quite frankly a game changer. We've been struggling with poor educational outcome for some time. There's evidence in many other jurisdictions that debating is a key tool to arrest those kind of downward and depressing results. So we've been working with the Ministry of Education to craft a program called Debate Pulse. And it's about to be launched. In fact, the ministry launched it at the launch of National Debaters Week on Tuesday, the 8th of October. So Debate Pulse, the word pulse is an acronym. It means promoting understanding, leadership, and speech empowerment. And so what that looks like is that JADE will train a vast army of facilitators all across Jamaica, send them into schools, and those facilitators will engage groups of 30 students at a time in training programs toward over 16 weeks towards building their capacities in the range of competencies that we've spoken about before, right? So that, again, is a game changer. And it's a game changer because of the scale of it. We're going to be starting with about over 100 schools in the first instance until we get into all schools across Jamaica. That's one. And then that's phase two. And then phase one is smaller. We're also approaching young people who are not attached to any formal institution, organization, may not be even employed. We're going to be reaching out to them and bringing them into a training program to get them also to benefit from the vast benefits, vast capacities that come about once you become a debater. So we're transforming Jamaica using debating. And we want to encourage corporate Jamaica and individual citizens who are wishing well for Jamaica to reach out as well and to contact and to, support the important work of JADE.
All right, so finally, as we drift towards the end of the program, though, what I want to find out, what are some of the goals that you have, the long-term goals that JADE has as an organization, both locally, or nationally rather, and regionally?
Right. So we want, right now there are 1,009 primary schools and high schools across Jamaica. The number of schools that have debate societies, we call them debate societies, groups of students who meet weekly to debate and to practice debate, it's a handful, not nearly enough. Mm-hmm. So one of the goals that we want is to have every school having a debate society. Yes? One. Two, we want to build sustainability. So we want to have teachers also trained in how to use debating in their classroom techniques. Yes? Three, we want to get Jamaica to become recognized more powerfully globally in debating. Is it just like how we're strong in athletics or, we have a little reputation even in football? Debating is a global sport, and I want Jamaica to become the vanguard of debating in terms of globally.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Mm-hmm. So we're going to put a pause on that now, because we have lots more to talk about. But we just want to take this opportunity to thank you for joining us on the conversation. We want to say a special thanks to Mr. Germaine Barrett, who spoke to us today, and we're always happy to have you here, Germaine. And I'm sure we'll be hearing from you soon. So be sure to tune in next time to the conversation as we continue addressing key issues that impact our country. Do remember to stay connected with us on Facebook, Instagram, and on X at Ceen TV. On behalf of the Conversation production team, I am Kwame Thomas. Thank you for watching.